Welcome back to another episode, edition, however you want to call it, of my Thursday Night Lives. My name is Gino D'Angelo. I'm a local Northern Michigan real estate agent coming to you live from Northern Michigan. I love doing these lives. I get to answer your questions, interact with you, get to know you a little bit, share some information, tell you what's going on with the market, what's going on in Northern Michigan in general, and just try to make you the most educated buyers possible. And whether you're watching this live, which a lot do, or the replay, which even more do, I'm eternally grateful that you're here. And I've really come to enjoy these. I don't know how many I've done now. It seems like I've done, 6 or 7. We've been doing these every week. We did miss Thanksgiving last week. But we're back. Tons of great information for you. And again, I'm super grateful that you're joining, whether it is live or if you're watching the replay. So a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight, just so you know what you're getting yourself into if you choose to stick around, is it is December 5th today. We have had record snowfall. Tons of school closings. This season is some of the time that people we're getting into the time of year when people who are considering relocating to Northern Michigan, this is the time of the year you're worried about. We got a lot of snow this week. We're going to get into some of the numbers. One of the towns if you're familiar with Northern Michigan, a little bit south of us, there's a location called, or a region called, the Snow Belt. And one of the towns in the Snow Belt broke the record for the most snow they've gotten in one day about a week ago. Specifically coming off the last couple of years, the lack of snow we've had and how mild the winters have been. It's interesting to see. I'm excited. I think having a lot of snow this winter is going to be great for the local economy. The ski hills are opening. We're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, record snowfall in Northern Michigan. And I think that's a really exciting topic, and hard to say what's going to happen from here going forward with the weather. So record snowfall in Northern Michigan. We got ski hills opening. And my personal favorite, and this is something I talk about every year, and I think this is a great platform to do it, why buying a house in the winter is the best time to buy a house in Northern Michigan. And I'm going to give you some really solid reasons why that could be the case for you. Now, look, if you don't want to move in Northern Michigan in the winter, if you don't want to move from where you're living now, if you want to just enjoy the holidays, that's great. But if you're considering making a move and time of year isn't super important to you, I think the winter is the best time to consider moving. And the proof is in the pudding. We are getting a lot of our clients some great deals on houses. We're saving tens of thousands of dollars off asking price. And even the listings we're dealing with right now, with the increased activity, the increased inventory, I'm even having to have different conversations with some of my listings that I used to have, pricing more appropriately, looking at the CMA, the market analysis, and saying, look, this is tracking what has happened. The market is declining a little bit. Good. I see Lacey has already asked a hard-hitting question, so I'll get back to that. So again, 3 things we're going to talk about tonight. 1, record snowfall in Northern Michigan. Number 2, ski hills are opening. There's some great stuff happening. I think December is one of the most underrated months of Northern Michigan. And 3rd, why buying a house in the winter could be a benefit to you. So my friend Lacey has asked, what most important question of the night, what was your Spotify rep? So Lacey, I don't actually use Spotify. I use Apple Music. Those of you that know me or don't know me know something you should know about me is I'm a huge Apple fan. I have an iPhone. I have a MacBook. I have an iPad. I have Apple TV, Apple Watch. I have all of it. And I like Apple because it all works together. And I choose to use Apple Music. This isn't why you watch, but if you want a little bit of a off-the-topic personal information, I like Apple stuff because it all works together. I like what I tell. I'm not going to say too loud because if I say her name too loud, she's going to respond. If I tell Siri to play a certain song, she just plays it. And I think Apple does a really good job. Their stuff is expensive, but I think they do a really good job of making their ecosystem work together. So for Lacey, I'm going to pull up my Apple Music replay. So don't judge me. I don't know what this is going to say. Let me see if I can share it. So here is my Apple replay. It looks like Hardy was number 1, Morgan Wallen, number 2, number 3, Brantley Gilbert, number 4, Jack Harlow. Oh, you can go over. Okay. Rounding out the top 5, Drake is number 5. And if you know me, you know last year Drake was number 1. So to go from number 1 to number 5 and get replaced by a bunch of country artists is something we should talk more about. Number 6 is Eminem. I think this is primarily because my son uses my phone a lot, and he's a big Eminem fan. Lil Durk, very underrated. I don't know who this is, so this might be another Genie situation. Jordan Davis, huge Jordan Davis fan. Rick Ross, love Rick Ross, Lil Baby. I don't know who Tusi is, so that I don't know who that is. Post Malone, Flo Rida, yeah, all the usual suspects. So there you go. There's the question you didn't think you were going to get answered, or the information you didn't think you're going to get to know is what my Apple replay was. So there you go. Really got into country music. My girlfriend Amber loves country music and has sort of turned me on to it. And I've learned that country music is sometimes better and more positive to listen to than rap. Although I love Drake, it was probably time for a change. So again, a couple of things we're going to get into. Record snowfall in northern Michigan. The ski hills are opening ahead of schedule. Excuse me. And then also why buying a house in northern Michigan during the winter could be in your best interest. One question I like to answer: where are you from? Where are you calling from? I'm sorry, where are you watching from? One of the things that I've loved the most about doing these lives is just getting to learn more about the audience, my viewers. Again, I was actually just talking to somebody in my office, and I'm going to pull this up for you guys. I remember when I started this YouTube channel thinking that I was going to get, I remember back having 10, 20 subscribers. I don't know if this is going to show up, but as of today, we are at, I'm going to get it close without making it. We're at 778 subscribers. So I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate you sharing this with your friends. I appreciate the comments, the positive, the negative, just having an overall conversation about what is going on in real estate in northern Michigan. And again, if you're watching, this is your first time, if you're, I've got a group of people that come on to these every week. Feel free to drop in. So my sister said, your foodie friend, who she also has a YouTube channel focusing more on charcuterie and how to build cheese boards and that sort of thing. So I appreciate that. So yeah, let me know where you're watching from, whether you're watching this live, drop it in the comments. If you're watching this as a replay, make sure you drop it in. If you're watching it live, drop it in the comments, in the live comments. If you're watching it as a replay, drop it in the comments, because I love to know where my viewers are watching from. And it's just been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing these. I did miss you guys last Thursday, so we do these every Thursday. Unfortunately or fortunately, last Thursday was Thanksgiving. I was at the Lions game. I had this delusional idea that I was going to go live before the Lions game, but we stayed in a hotel that was about 45 minutes north of Detroit and Auburn Hills. So just doing the math backwards, we had to meet the Uber at 9, get to the game, buy merch, buy snacks, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to go live at 7 o'clock in the morning because I didn't feel that was a time that you guys would want to wake up on Thanksgiving Day and talk about northern Michigan real estate at 7 a.m. So I apologize. We missed last week, but we are back this week, and we're going to be back every week. There's a week coming up where my son has his Christmas performance, so I might have to go a little bit earlier. But outside of that, again, plan on these every Thursday at 7 o'clock. I'm super excited. It's the best night you can ask for. Worked all day helping my buyers and sellers buy and sell real estate. Met with a client right before this. Now I'm doing this, and right after this, we're going to get off here and we're going to go watch the Lions beat the Packers. So huge Lions fan right now. I've always sort of followed them, but it's obviously a lot more fun to follow. Look, I don't know if I would have the helmet in the studio if they weren't as good as they are right now. So I'm super excited to watch the Lions beat the Packers. Look, the Lions have a tough stretch coming up. They've got the Packers this week, very strong team. They've got the Buffalo Bills next week, another very strong team. So they definitely have a tough road ahead of them. I actually saw a statistic today that said the Lions have, like the average NFL team has 6 defensive players on the injured reserve right now, and the Lions have 13. So given the schedule they've got coming up, I think that's going to be I think it's going to be tough. But hey, you don't come here for my football commentary. You come here to learn more about what's going on in northern Michigan and northern Michigan real estate. So I'm going to pop my slide up just to get started. This is the snowfall in northern Michigan right now. right after, so we left for Thanksgiving. We drove to Detroit. It was fine. Stayed in Detroit. We went down Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was the game. Came back Friday. On our way back, and this is a fun fact. If you live in Northern Michigan and you travel outside of Northern Michigan in the winter, whether you go to Detroit or Grand Rapids or wherever you go, odds are if you're leaving Northern Michigan, if you're leaving the general Northern Michigan area, whether you're getting on a plane or just traveling to Detroit or Metro Detroit area to go shopping or just hang out, something you're going to notice on the way back is you get to West Branch, between West Branch and Gaylord, you start to notice a lot more snowfall, meaning it's like everything is fine. And then you get to West Branch, which is the exit 212. And north of there, you start to see a lot of snow. And that's just something we have to deal with. So on our way back from downstate, we started seeing a tremendous amount of snow, and the roads got absolutely terrible. I should have taken a video. That way I could share it with you. But from that, so that's the day after Thanksgiving. From that point, until today, there have been the massive school closings. I was talking to somebody out and about today, Wolverine, so Gaylord, a lot of you I'm sure have heard of. Gaylord's a pretty big town. And Wolverine, it sounds like they've had snow days for the last 2 weeks. They haven't had much school. And even as far over as Traverse City had 3 snow days this week. So out of 4 days so far, 3 of them have been snow days. Petoskey did have 1 snow day. My son was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get one today. But after last winter, with how mild it is absolutely incredible to see how much snow we've gotten. So with all that being said, let's hop into this. So here is the snowfall to this point. You see Gaylord coming in at 25 inches so far. And I mentioned earlier that the town that's in the snow belt that gets a ton of snow that recently broke the record was Gaylord. They got most of that 25 inches within 1 day, overnight. So they got 2 feet of snow in 1 day, which is a record for Gaylord. And I know a lot of people that watch this, Gaylord, with everything that's going on there, Gaylord is becoming one of the more prominent relocation markets. They've always had a bunch of big box stores. It's always been one of the more affordable places to live in Northern Michigan. And now they've got Amazon opening. They've got a lot of great stuff going on in Gaylord. And we've had a lot of people who have elected to move to Gaylord. I've had, I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I've had a story. The story goes that I had a client who wanted to buy a house in Petoskey or Charlevoix between $600,000 or $700,000, very well qualified. They could buy whatever they wanted. And after watching some of our videos and looking at the market, they ended up buying a house in Gaylord for about half of what they thought they were going to spend in Petoskey or Charlevoix. And I actually just spoke with that person recently, and they said it was the best decision they ever made. They said they wanted to move to Petoskey or Charlevoix, that area, just because they had heard a lot of great things about it and they didn't really know much about Gaylord. But then they went down there and looked around and they realized, look, for the same price as, not same price, for half the price, they still get to live in Northern Michigan. It's a great area, tons to offer. There are some differences between Gaylord and Petoskey or Charlevoix, but if you don't care about, being on the water, driving a boat, or, hanging out a lot on the water, Gaylord's a great option. They've got, especially if you like the winter, they've got, especially this year, they've got great snowmobiling, they've got great golf, they've got some water, they've got conveniences. And I think Gaylord is one of the most underrated places in Northern Michigan. And we've got our Sophie Yost watching here in Fort Myers. Thank you so much for joining, Sophie. I hope everything is going well in Fort Myers. Sophie, drop a message. I actually talked to a client today who was in Florida, not Fort Myers. I think he was someplace else. I don't remember where it was, but someplace in Florida. And I asked anytime in the winter when I speak to my clients that are in Florida, it's usually pretty common. I ask them, hey, what's your temperature right now? And he said it was like 80 degrees there. And I said, wow, you are 50 degrees hotter than we are here in Northern Michigan. And we both had a little bit of a laugh about that. So yeah, right now, Charlevoix, Petoskey, it's really interesting to look at the chart of the snowfall right now. Gaylord, which is in the snow belt, and Traverse City have gotten by far the most snow. Petoskey, we've got a little bit, but not much. And, I was looking at the forecast next week, and, it's going to be in the 40s. So we had this actually happen. One thing I love about Facebook is you go back and look at your memories. And a couple of years ago, we had a ton of snow. And maybe even last year, we had a ton of snow in December. And then it all melted, and we had a really mild winter. One thing that I think is super cool about where my office is located is we look directly across the bay at Harbor Springs. And one thing that's also cool about that is we can see the ski hills. So from my office lobby, I can see both Boyd Highlands and Nubbs Knob. And when I'm working late, I can see which one of them are making snow. And last night, Boyd Highlands is actually making snow right now. And we're going to get to that later on. But the ski hills are open. And I think that's a really probably well-needed shot in the arm. Obviously, they're big companies. But after last year in the limited ski season, I think that they're probably welcoming the early snow. Sophie just said, currently a balmy 64. LOL. Been waiting for 4 months for cool weather. Well, the cool weather is here. So again, thank you so much for watching. I think Fort Myers is great. I know a lot of people from there. I've actually heard that they got hit a little bit with the hurricanes and maybe they're doing some rebuilding there. I hope everything's good. And Sophie, thank you again for watching. So looking at the slides, this is the Snowfall. This was on 11/29, which is the day that Gaylord set the record. So I want to make sure we clarify. This was in one day. Gaylord got 2 feet of snow a few days after Thanksgiving, which is the earliest. I grew up here and I remember winters used to be a lot different than they are now. That is a lot of snow, and that is definitely something that Northern Michigan needs. If you've been following us for any time, we also own a short-term rental management company. So we manage a handful of short-term rentals for our clients. And last year it was tough. If it doesn't snow in Northern Michigan, people don't come to Northern Michigan. And as much as I love a peaceful commute to work every day and showing houses and just getting around, we absolutely need the snow here in Northern Michigan. So very curious how it goes from here, and hopefully the snow keeps coming and we're able to get out skiing, and we'll be making content about just to give you guys, since you guys come on here to watch me and support me, I'll give you a little bit of an insight and a little bit tip of what's coming up next for us. We're going to do a couple series of what it's actually like to live in Northern Michigan in the winter, because if you are watching this channel or watching me because you want to know what it's like to live here, I think that living, everybody talks about how great it is to live here in the summertime, and Northern Michigan is Northern Michigan because of the summer, but the winter is something, and the winter is something. And if you can't, especially if you're relocating for your first time, if you're relocating here full time and you're coming from someplace like Florida or Texas, which is really common, you want to make sure you can handle these winters, because I think they're beautiful. I think it's a great time to slow down and just hang out. In fact, before this, I just met with a client who, we've been trying to get together for a little over 6 months, and, you're busy in the summer, and this is just the time of year when things slow down and you can catch up and recuperate, travel a little bit. And I think that's just great. However, if you hate the snow, if you hate the cold, I'd love to ask Sophie, what are your thoughts on the cold? Have you ever been to Michigan or Northern Michigan? Have you ever seen snow? If you haven't dealt with the snow, it is something that you have to consider. And especially with how the winter started this year, it appears that it's going to have to be something that we think about for a while. Sorry. So this is the snowfall from just about the day after Thanksgiving until a couple of days ago. Gaylord is almost at 50 inches of snow, over 4 feet of snow. Petoskey is catching up. Charlevoix, Traverse City. Look, Traverse City is over 2 feet of snow. That's incredible. It seems like, I'm not a meteorologist, but just watching this, it seems like a lot of the snow appears to be lake effect, which I think is why Traverse City has gotten so much of it, because Traverse City typically Traverse City doesn't get that much more snow than Petoskey does. And again, Traverse City had 3 snow days this week. Petoskey had 1, and the 1 was a little bit shaky. Like, it probably, didn't necessarily need to be a snow day, although I'm sure the kids appreciated it. Here's the mean average annual snowfall since 1991. So the reason I use this stat is it goes back and shows for the last, 30 years how much snow Northern Michigan has gotten. And it can sort of show, if you look at the map, let me go back. If you look at the map, the darker the color, the more snow it gets. So this area right here, where the pink and blue, that's the Petoskey, Gaylord, Charlevoix area. So we definitely get a ton of snow here, which is something to consider if you're considering relocating here. 2024 25 winter outlook. This comes directly from the Farmer's Almanac. If you're not familiar, the Farmer's Almanac is an almanac that comes out that is put on by the farmers. That is sort of like the prediction of what kind of winter you're going to expect. And I remember my parents talking about this when I was a kid. The Farmer's Almanac has always been a fairly accurate representation of what to expect. So just looking at the country in whole, they're saying that the Midwest, which is the part, the Lake Greener, Michigan is going to have a cold, wet, and white winter, which has lined up. It looks like the rest of the country, mild and wet, which is, pretty common for the South, moderate temps, wet. It looks like basically, if you look at the country as a whole, it appears that it's going to be par for the course, meaning this is basically what we expect for the winter. So no huge surprises, but the Farmer's Almanac is always pretty dialed into what's going on. So if you want to follow them, there's, they're on social media now, like everything else. Check them out, and it's a good gauge of what's going to happen. Let's talk about the ski hills a little bit. Boyne Mountain, which is the biggest ski resort in the Midwest, 65 runs open. If you're looking for a season pass for Boyne Mountain, plan to spend $400. The $400 pass, you're going to get a lot of weekdays, some weekends. There's going to be some blackouts with those. You're not going to be able to go on President's Day weekend or over the holidays. But, honest, for those of us that live in northern Michigan, the $400 pass is fine because we don't want to go to the hills on the holiday weekends when they're busy, when we can go to them whenever we want. And so starting at 400 up to 1,000. If you're looking at the Boyne passes, now this is Boyne Mountain. We're going to talk about Boyne Highlands also in a minute. That $1,000 pass is like the Cadillac or the Rolls Royce of ski passes, meaning you can go on. There's no blackout dates. You even get some discounts at some of the other Boyne properties around the country, out west and Big Sky and that sort of thing. The Highlands is Boyne Highlands. It's the sister property to Boyne Mountain. Boyne Mountain is in Boyne Falls. The Highlands, which this is where I ski. The Highlands is located in Harbor Springs, which is about 15 minutes north of my office. I love the Highlands. What I like about the Highlands, it's more of a local place. Boyne Mountain, great resort property. They've got a huge hotel, water park. If you're coming up to northern Michigan to ski for a weekend, odds are you're staying at Boyne Mountain and you're going to ski there and go to the water park at night and that sort of thing. I prefer the Highlands. One thing that I think they do really well is my son started skiing at Boyne Highlands when he was 3. He's now 11, and he is a great skier, sheerly from their Mountain Master program. So they do a great job with the kids. I love going. They have great restaurants. Just a cool place to hang out. Now, obviously, there's the big debate because directly across the street is a local favorite, Nub's Knob, which we're going to get to next, I believe. They also have 53 runs. These last 3, one thing that I think, insider tip, if you're going to ski in northern Michigan, go at night. If you're going to be here at night, I love night skiing. I think it's a really cool dynamic. And it's also extremely affordable. Something I should have added to these slides in case anybody's coming back to watch these later on. These are like surge pricing like Uber, meaning if you book for 2 weeks from now on a Tuesday night, you're going to get $29. If you book the same day, it's going to be $49. So make sure if you're going to go night skiing in northern Michigan that you book these ahead of time. That way you can save yourself a little bit of money. And again, that is just an insider tip. Sophie, I asked her a second ago where she's from. She said originally from Chicago, fled from the snow in 2002, but northern Michigan would be on another level. Sophie, do you think you could handle the snow of northern Michigan? Obviously, Chicago, one of my favorite cities in the Midwest. In fact, one of my favorite cities in the world. I love Chicago. One of my favorite things to do, I talk about this all the time, is fly from Traverse City to Chicago because it is a 37-minute flight and you go from beautiful northern Michigan, a little more laid back, into one of the most bustling cities in the country. And I think that's just like a really cool dynamic to be able to go from Traverse City to Chicago in 37 minutes. And as I always say, given the time change, you don't lose anything because they're an hour behind us. So the hour it takes for you to get on the plane and fly to Chicago, when you get there, it is the same time as when you left. So you're basically adding hours to your life. So super cool. Again, full schedule opening December 6th, which if you look at the calendar, today is December 5th. It's already December 5th. It's kind of crazy that we're a week into December and winter is full on here. I'll be honest, I cannot remember the last time we had a white Christmas. If anybody locally is watching this and wants to weigh in, or if you're watching this as a replay and want to comment, when's the last time we had a white Christmas in Northern Michigan? Drop a comment below, either live or on the replay. It's been a few years. Certainly wasn't last year. In fact, I remember last year, the week between Christmas and New Year is really busy season for the ski hills, and those ski passes go for anywhere from $200 to $300 a day. And it rained, meaning nobody was buying these ski passes when there was mud on the ski hills, and it wasn't a real great overall last year. It wasn't a good winter, and it wasn't a good winter for skiing. Wasn't a good winter for snowmobiling. Not a great winter for ice fishing or any of the Northern Michigan winter activities. But it feels like this year is going to be a little bit different. So the Highlands, $25 night passes, same. The Highlands and Boyne Mountain are going to have very similar year passes. Nubs Knob, again, the season passes at Nubs Knob are a little bit less expensive. However, you don't get as many amenities. Again, we always have this debate. I like Boyne Highlands. I'm in the minority. Most people like Nubs Knob. They say Nubs Knob has the best snow in the Midwest, which I don't have a way to gauge that. They probably do. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. This year, I may end up buying a pass to Boyne Highlands and Nubs Knob just because the passes here are $400. If you go skiing one time, it's $80. You're better off just buying the pass, and that way, when your friends want to go to Nubs Knob, you can go with them, and it's economically affordable. And also, I will say Nubs Knob does have great curly fries. So if you like curly fries and you like a non-resort skiing experience, you're going to love Nubs Knob. Crystal Mountain is one of the lesser known ski hills. Personally, I prefer the Boyne properties and even Nubs Knob over Crystal Mountain, except Crystal Mountain is very close to Traverse City. If you're downtown Traverse City or anywhere near Traverse City, Crystal Mountain is a lot closer than any of the Boyne properties. So if you are relocating to Traverse City, or you live in Traverse City and you want to ski, Crystal Mountain is a great option. And then just once in a while on the weekend, come see us over here in Boyne. I know a lot of people that do that. They buy the Black Friday passes. They can get a deal, and then they just come over here once in a while, and it's like a little bit of a getaway. Treetops in Gaylord is another great ski hill. I've never skied. I'll be honest, I've never skied at Treetops, but I will say my guess is they probably don't have to make as much snow as we do over here. But they've got 28 runs, which is about half of the big resorts here. Night passes very similar. There are day passes. If you can get a day pass for $35, it might be worth a trip to Gaylord. Season passes $200 to $350. Certainly nothing wrong with Treetops. Treetops, great property. They are mainly known for golf, but they do again have a couple of small hills for you to ski down. So definitely not a bad option. So with that being said, if you're considering relocating to Northern Michigan and you're scared of the winters, I would just tell you a couple of tips. One, make sure you have a quality vehicle, some sort of truck, SUV, all-wheel drive car. Make sure you have good tires. And then that's the practical side of it. Outside of the practical side of it, for the fun side of it, or making sure you enjoy the lifestyle here, find a winter hobby. Skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, those are great. Buy a snowmobile, go ice fishing. Make sure you do something, unless you're just somebody that wants to relax and enjoy the winter and just recoup and get ready for the spring and summer and fall. That's fine. Read a book, start a fire, stay inside. But the people that I know, I just did a video earlier today about what it's like to live in Traverse City. And at the end of a lot of these videos, we always say, this person should live in Traverse City if this person should not live in Traverse City if you hate the snow and you hate the cold weather, you're going to hate living in Northern Michigan. So just keep that in mind. We've had people, I talked about this in the video today that's coming out in a week or so. I have had people move to Northern Michigan and come back and decide they hate it and have said, this isn't what we wanted. We can't handle the snow. We're going back south. And I don't want that to happen, which is a lot of the reason we make these videos. That way you have a better idea of what's going on. K Content just asked, what kind of truck would you recommend? Diesel, pickup, 4Runner? That's a great question. I would recommend any car that is good in the snow, and it really depends on what you personally need. I don't necessarily think you need a diesel pickup, although if you're towing a bunch of stuff or you have an RV or pulling a big snowmobile trailer, that might help. I've driven Jeep Grand Cherokees for a long time. They are awesome in the snow. I've had an Audi, great in the snow. My assistant Candace drives a Buick, great in the snow. I know people that drive, Kias, pickup trucks, anything that's all-wheel drive with good tires is going to be good enough. There are going to be days when no matter what you're driving, you're going to have to stay off the roads. So just make sure you're not driving a rear-wheel drive car. Actually, I have a friend who has an SUV, but also had a rear-wheel drive Jaguar, and we were together one time, and it was a snowstorm, and that car was a beautiful car, very nice, absolutely useless in the snow. So just make sure, any car, any 4Runner, any Jeep, any Audi, any Subaru, any of those cars are going to be great. One of the topics I love talking about, and this seems like a fitting time, is why is winter the best time to buy a house? Now, again, if you were to ask me when the absolute best time to buy a house is, I would tell you the best time to buy a house is when you are ready to buy a house. Meaning there is no time of year when it is so good to buy a house that you should say, screw everything, I'm buying a house today because it makes that much sense. That's not the case. If you don't need a house in the winter, don't buy a house in the winter. If you don't need a house in the summer, don't buy a house in the summer. But if you need a house and you're thinking, hey, I was hoping to buy a house in the spring, but it doesn't really inconvenience me, it probably would be a little bit, even maybe a little bit helpful to buy one earlier in the year, this conversation is 100% for you. And this doesn't just go for Northern Michigan. Listen, anywhere specifically, you're going to see what I'm talking about in a second. Specifically, anywhere that gets snow or inclement weather, there's a couple of good reasons that the winter might be the best time to consider buying a house. So let's just hop right into it. Less competition. Most people buy houses in the spring or the fall, which sometimes surprises people when I tell them that. The spring is notorious as a great real estate market. People want to get their houses, get into them for summer. The snow's let up. There's more inventory. Great time to consider buying a house. We're very busy in the spring. I'm sure most real estate agents are. However, in the wintertime, there is less competition, meaning unless you really need a house, you're not going to walk out if you're in Gaylord, 24 inches of snow. If you're in Traverse City, 20 inches of snow. Petoskey, 10 inches of snow. You're not going out in the weather today. I came in from outside before I did this video. It is cold out, and if I were buying a house right now, I wouldn't be looking at a house unless I absolutely needed one. So the idea that there's less competition, specifically compared to the spring, meaning there are going to be less people looking now than in the spring, which less competition means lower prices, meaning a better deal for you. Motivated sellers. A lot of sellers, the sellers that I know, that I speak with, that are keeping their houses on the market throughout the winter are doing so because they are motivated. You see a lot of sellers in the fall, summer, spring, just put their house on the market to see what happens. They're going to put it out there, maybe put a high price on it, just test the market, especially coming off the market that we've had the last couple of years. We've had a lot of sellers putting their houses out there just to see what they can get. And I'm here to tell you the sellers that are on the market in the wintertime are only on the market because they actually want to sell their house. And as a buyer, the best time to buy a house from somebody is when they actually want to sell it, because you're going to get a fair price versus somebody who's just testing the market, that you're going to actually have to give them an above market value price in order for them to sell their house. Let me go back a couple. Lower price. Again, this goes along the line of people being motivated. There's a chance you're going to get a lower price in the winter because people are more likely to take a little bit less money than hold on to the property all winter, pay taxes, pay to maintain it, especially in an area. Look, a lot of our sellers aren't here. So the thought is, I have this conversation with sellers all the time, and they say, look, I would rather sell my house for a little bit less and not have to worry about it than continue to plow it, continue to pay a heat bill, continue to maintain it through the winter. So that is definitely an opportunity to get a little bit lower of a price. You can see the home's durability. Now, this is a big one. This is actually another reason this can a little bit go into winter and spring. Winter and spring will highlight the good and the bad and the ugly better than any other time of year. Summer will show you exactly what's positive about a house. And in fact, if you came to see a house with me in July in northern Michigan, I wouldn't even have to try to sell you. I would show you the house, show you the lifestyle, show you the blue sky, show you the water, and you would say, hey, this is for me. Something to consider. What I think savvy home buyers look for houses in the winter and the spring is you can see a little bit better what's wrong with the house. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody sell a house where it looked perfect, and then the spring comes and the front yard is flooded and they have a little bit of water in the basement. And also in the winter, you can see, hey, is this house holding the heat? Is the heat's on? You walk through the house, it's still a little bit cold. How's the insulation? You can really see the durability of the house, which I think is incredibly important when deciding whether to buy a house or not. So this goes for both the winter and the spring. Also, we have a lot of quirky driveways in northern Michigan. Where you live, do you have a lot of quirky driveways? Drop a comment below. Are your driveways all flat, or are they a little bit quirky? Because in northern Michigan, we have a lot of great views, a lot of rolling hills, a lot of great countryside. Unfortunately, what comes with those are a little bit of quirky driveway. Now, those quirky driveways in the summer are going to be no big deal. You're not going to think about them. However, over half the year, we have poor weather or inclement weather. You want to make sure that that driveway is not going to be a pain in the winter or something that you're going to feel is unsafe or something that you don't want to deal with. So driveways specifically, it's probably not something you're thinking about when coming to northern Michigan. But if you have a driveway that's a little bit of an incline, you're going to want to make sure you've checked that out in the wintertime to make sure that's not going to be a big problem or give you a huge plow bill because you've got to hire somebody to plow the driveway. Tax benefits, specifically this time of year. I just had this conversation with somebody recently. If you buy a house in December, you get a lot of tax benefits as far as being able, and again, I need to preface this by saying I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. I do sell a lot of real estate, so I know a little bit how this stuff works. You're going to get a lot of the same homeowner deductibles or the homeowner property tax exemptions if you buy and close on a house in December as if you owned it the entire year. So there could be some significant tax benefits in buying a house in this calendar year. Now, obviously, it's December 5th. Unless you're paying cash, it would be very, very hard to. This is more of a general piece of advice. It would be very hard unless you're paying cash to buy a house today and close on it this year. But in the future, and again, this is why I do these videos, is to make sure you're as educated as possible. If you buy a house in December, there's going to be some tax benefits, but make sure you talk to your accountant to make sure what those tax benefits are. Mover flexibility. When you're buying in a time of year when there's not a lot of transactions going on, you're going to have access to movers that you may not have had. I can't tell you how often we sell a house in the summertime, and just booking the movers is a big deal. And in the winter, you don't have to deal with that. In fact, you might even get a better deal by moving because the movers aren't busy and they're still paying their staff and they're still paying for trucks. Last slide that I'm going to get into tonight, and I want to be cognizant that I don't keep you too late because I need all of my Michigan friends to go cheer on the Lions and help them beat the Green Bay Packers. Somebody texted me before this live and said if the Lions win tonight, they're going to clinch the playoffs, which is huge for a longtime Detroit Lions fan. So let's go through this. I'm going to get you guys out of here on time. How to enjoy winter in northern Michigan. The number one way to enjoy winter in northern Michigan is to just make sure that you have a hobby that you like, that you're prepared for it. I think look, this is a little bit crazy to say that you have to actually come up with a game plan to live in an area, but it's the truth. You actually have to have a winter game plan for northern Michigan, meaning you got to have the right clothes. You got to make sure your car's ready. You got to make sure your house is ready. You got to make sure you're mentally ready. It is an entire thing to get ready for winter in northern Michigan. I'm going to drop a banner down here. while I'm talking about this next little bit, if you have any questions, we're going to do a little Q&A. If you have any questions or anything you want answered, let me know. This is what I do these for, and I will be sure to answer any questions that you might have. But you really need to, I'm going to leave you with this. You really need to make sure that you come up with a solid game plan in order to survive the winter, meaning make sure you have good tires on your car. Make sure that your house is insulated. You've got, maybe you have to put plastic on the windows. Maybe you have to create the seals or seal off the house so you keep your heat in. Those things are incredibly important to living in northern Michigan. So I think that the wintertime in northern Michigan is one of the most underrated times of year. I love living here. It's even a little bit fun to drive around in the snow, especially if you have a car that does well. There's a little bit of a learning curve because it seems like every year people forget how to drive in the snow, and that's something that you have to deal with. So again, if you have any questions about what it might be like to live in northern Michigan or northern Michigan in the winter or anything along those lines, please reach out to me directly. There's a Calendly link below. Email me at gino@ginotheangelo.com. Feel free to call me at, I'm going to put my email address on here so you guys can email me anytime. Feel free to email me. I love the conversations. It seems like every time I do one of these lives, somebody reaches out to me directly after to talk about something that we talked about today. So if you're worried about northern Michigan winters, or if you're excited about northern Michigan winters, or you want to know more about what it would be like to live in northern Michigan, please reach out to me directly and I'll be happy to help you. Again, thank you so much for coming to these every Thursday. We're going to keep doing them. It's one of my favorite nights of the week. If you know anybody who might appreciate this content or could find some value in it, please share it with them. Again, thank you. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. We're on a dead run from 778 right now to 1,000. And it's going to be really exciting when we hit that mark, which allows me to make even better videos. We've got some cool stuff coming for the winter. We've got some day in the life, what it's actually like to live. We're going to get out of the studio. We're going to go into the snow so you can see exactly what it's like to live in northern Michigan in the wintertime, to maybe make it a little bit easier for some of you to think about relocating here. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I want to hop off here so we can all go watch the Lions beat the Packers. Thank you so much again, and I really appreciate your support.